Greetings, and in this video I'm going to be building the Airfix 172 scale Supermarine Spitfire. Classic kit, and I've had it in my stash for a while and I thought this would be a good time to put it out of the box and get it built. So here we have a quick look at the parts, and quite honestly I'm quite surprised actually at how sharp the detail is on this kit actually for considering its age, because it's not a new kit, let's be honest here. But actually, it looks good. I don't know whether or not it's had any retooling, but yeah, the parts look good. Yeah, there's a couple of errors you can see here, whereby there's a bit of extra molding and so forth. But really, I was actually surprised. Yeah, I've just done what I normally do: give the parts a bath in soapy water, and just give them a bit of a dry. And it actually did do something, you know. It is noticeable that when I start drying this off, it goes from this sort of waxy finish to this very satin matte look, which it shows that there was actually, you know, release agent on these parts. And this is a close-up of the pilot that came with the kit, and here I am just shaving off a bit of extra flash on the side of the pilot. Tiny little figure, but I've just glued it to a piece of extra sprue, and I'm going to start painting. So I didn't have the right color blue for the pilot, so here I am mixing up some dark blue with some grey and a couple of drops of black, and testing it out on some scrap sprue just to see that I've got the right colour. And I like the finish that it's got, so let's crack on. And after painting the jumpsuit, and now we're working on his boots, and it is a really, you know, tiny figure to paint, and getting the face as well. I mean, you saw the close-up there. He didn't have a nose. You know, he is the Lord Voldemort of pilots. But it is a tiny amount of detail. So I was just really happy with the finish that I got on it. And here you can see I'm actually using the armature to steady my hand to paint the figure. And it is very small, so it is difficult to get it in focus. But it is fair to say that I mean, you can see the size of my fingerprints there, but I am pretty happy with that. As I managed to paint the goggles on that, so that left me pretty happy. Okay, so on with painting the rest of the kit, and I'm painting it on the sprue here, as it's just easier to manage. Getting the chair painted first, then it's on to painting the interior. I had to make up this green because I didn't have it, so I mixed up some olive green, some sand yellow, and then I brightened it with some white, and it's got pretty much into the actual tone of the actual Spitfire cockpit, so I'm pretty happy with that. And here you can see the details I've added there. Now on with painting the propeller and the nose cone as well. So here we have the cockpit instrument panel, and I'm just painting it with some Citadel hard coat ready for the decal application. And now I'm just scraping away some paint, allowing good contact for when the pilot is glued into place. So what I'm doing here is just using a little piece of sprue as a glue applicator and just getting a little bit of glue on these points. They are actually keyed, so they do click into place. It's a little bit fiddly, but you can feel it when it does just snap into place, and it's quite nice. And the same with the control stick. As soon as you get into the right position, it just clicks in place and you can just feel it. So pluses on that. Now all I'm doing here is where I've primed the kit, I'm just scraping away the primer just so that I've got some good adhesion between the kit parts. Just giving it a little scrape with the X-Acto and getting the primer off just to ensure that I've got good contact. And obviously I'm gluing in some final pieces here to finish off the cockpit before installing the pilot. Now I will say, this is the one part of the kit I really wasn't sure on. I looked at the instructions and there was no, I'm not an expert on these things. I don't know exactly where it's supposed to sit. I tried my best. I had to make a guess as to where this actually sits in place. I think it's right. I don't know. So yeah, I made the best guess that I could with that one. And here, yeah, I'm just putting the two halves together and it went together pretty well. It literally just, there was a little bit of fiddling about making sure that the propellers had in place properly, but actually it went together pretty well. And here I'm just removing a bit of paint from the tail fin just to make sure that there's good contact between that and the other parts, and of course going over the seams as well just to make sure that there's no protruding plastic. So here I am finishing off painting the rest of the cockpit interior and other kit parts ready for assembly. And same sort of procedure here, scrape, glue and click. Now, for as good as this kit has been, this was actually not great. It took some work to get this into position, and every time I pushed one piece in, another piece would pop out. The fit was not fantastic. It got there in the end, but it did take a little bit of fiddling around, and you can see there it eventually went in, but I went over it with some sandpaper just to smooth out some edges there. It is probably the worst part of the kit, actually, and that's not a bad thing really, because you know, if that's the worst you can say about it, it's a pretty damn good kit. Next, it's on with some airbrushing, and yeah, I'm getting the base color on first, which is the dark brown tan, and then painting the camel. And I'm just basically following the pattern that's on the box. I'm not doing anything spectacular. I'm not making my own. I'm literally just following the pattern. I should say as well, I'm putting it on pretty thin, so it takes a couple of coats. It's not a one and done. It does take a few coats to get it painted. And then I'm applying the other colours here, which is the aluminium and the black and the white, and the same thing there. They're going on pretty thin and letting it dry, and then applying the another coat over the top. And once that's done, it's time to move on with some decals. And here I'm using some microset and microsol, applying the microset to the model, leaving the decals soaked in some warm water. It's not hot, it's just warm and tepid in fact. Putting it on, moving it into position, and keep going until they're done, and then apply the microsol when it's dry. Now the good thing with microset is that it does allow you time to move decals around. In fact, you see with this long one here that this takes quite a bit to get it into position. And the thing is, even with tricky ones with like this GR here, the trick is not to panic. Like, you know, if you get crumpling or folding or anything like that, the best thing to do is to just take your time, take it easy, because panicking, you're only going to make it worse. So, but yeah, you once it's on and you're happy, you go over it with the microsol, and it sucks the decals down into all the cracks and grooves, and it just makes it look a little more painted on. Yeah, the only other thing I would say about the decals with this set is that it does produce some tiny fine detail decals, and I just wish the smaller ones were on a larger transparent island for application, because some of them they fit on the tip of the knife and that's it. But anyway, now that they're on, it's time to go over the model with some matte lacquer just to seal it all in. And here I took two pieces of magnet wire, twisted them together, and then used some CA and some kicker to glue them into place. It was a bit tricky, and in hindsight I could have probably used a pair of tweezers to have assisted here, but yeah, I just fiddled around with it, got it on, and I'm pretty happy with the results. Following this stage, I did a little bit of weathering, nothing fancy, just a little bit of streaking and a little bit of pin washing just to bring out the details. So now it's on to making the base, and I didn't want anything fancy here. This was just a really quick base that I wanted to build for the Spitfire. Nothing fancy, I'm just building a section of runway, and yeah, I'm just marking out where I want the runway to go, and then masking that area off to be protected. And then what I have here is some actual cement, and I mix in some PVA and some soapy water, and what happens there is that the PVA makes the cement a little more flexible and less able to crack, and the soapy water means that it can be put on dryer but will still smooth out pretty easy. And so yeah, that's the reason for doing it. If you make it too wet, the cement when it dries will just shrink. So to avoid that, I just mix in some soapy water. It still makes it pliable, but there's less shrinkage. When it's fairly smooth, I remove the masking tape to reveal the bare board underneath, and I'm applying some PVA here to get ready to flock. Now what I have here is some soil. This soil here is from my back garden, and what I did is that it's not just straight on my back garden. I put it into a pot, I filled it with some water and some soapy water and some detergent, then I shook it up, filtered it, put it into an oven, and then I baked it, and what you end up with is this really fine soil that is good for model building, and it's also clean. So now it's time to add some flock, and I've got some bright coloured green here because I wanted something that was going to contrast with the plane. And yeah, I'm just putting it on sparingly. I've left the edges, and you can see here that what I'm actually doing here is staining the edge because I want it to look like there's been water built up and drainage and so forth. Now I'm using some static grass. It's easy to apply and it just adds a little something extra to the scene. I'm not putting it on everywhere, I'm just putting it on in spots. And it just breaks it up, it makes it look a little bit more natural. Now here you can see I'm applying it all over, but actually it's only sticking to where the glue is. So I'm going over in certain areas, and then you pick it up and then you bang it off, and you'll see that it only sticks where it needed to. And what I'm doing right now is adding some weather into the runway, so a little bit of oil spills, a couple of scrapes, things like that, bits of patched work. And don't worry about how harsh it looks, it will fade. The cement will absorb it and it will fade away. But you can see I put a couple of oil spills on and things like that. And just like that, we are done. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.